You know how movie villains do their little villain monologue and explain the details of their plan when there's still time for someone to sabotage it? I would never make such a rookie mistake. So if you are seeing this, it's too late. When people overcome suicidal ideation, some Christians will say they defeated the devil. But the devil was never my enemy, so I didn't need to defeat him. In fact, he was training me to take his throne as the ruler of hell. Even if you don't believe in supernatural magic, you probably believe in the art of deception, which is what I used to distract people while gathering scientific evidence to support my claim that I am the devil, and Alkaline summoned me with his chants back in the 2010s. Now, why would I want to prove that I'm the devil? So that I can torture people who deserve hell for as long as I live, obviously. Yes, this is all about exacting revenge against psychiatric staff in Jamaica because them they try to take me for idiot, even though we were educated at the same university. Tell me if that makes sense. And you know what's worse? I minored in psychology. So by the end of this video, you will see how alkaline was a perfect pawn in my vendetta against the mental health industrial complex and the church, of course. Jamaican dancehall music can be very violent, graphic, and it is also filled with information about witchcraft. So it had been keeping me calm and was giving me ideas on what to do with witchcraft over these past 5 years while I was working on manifesting my dream of building a career in mental health. As a scientist independently working on some cannabis research, while I was going crazy, I considered the fact that them say scientists go missing whenever they share information that can potentially liberate the masses. So the videos on here were basically my creative way of guarding up without a guard ring. I learned about the whole concept of guarding up from Jamaican dancehall music. So for those who aren't familiar with Jamaican culture, it's basically protection magic. Being raised in the manipulative, demonic cult of Jehovah's Witnesses has worked out for me, but the best idea they gave me is that Jesus and God are not one and the same. That made it easier for me to pray to God and ask Him for help through rock bottom while believing that Jesus might be back here on earth. Religious trauma caused me to attempt taking my own life twice, so I have beef with the church. And here's the great thing about my magic: even if Jesus never existed, proving my twin flame, a fellow scientist, is him, is the only return of the Christ that these delusional Christians are ever going to get. God, nobody will come out of the bumbleclot sky for save nobody. So, one way or another, I'm about to create hell for hypocritical Christians who deserve hell. So, this is my testimony of how Jesus Christ saved my soul. I wanted to ensure I'd be able to torment people with my existence, so I kept saying, God, please keep my enemies alive because I know I can prove I'm the queen of hell. And I used the fact that people perceived me as crazy to my advantage while I weaved a very intricate web of deception to achieve my objective. But my twin flame prevented me from taking things too far too soon, and that saved me. So he's my Jesus Christ, and he's a Jamaican biologist who is very much on earth, and he's not a magic man in the sky. I also have the delusion that I'm Mary Magdalene and I was destined to start remembering who I am in 2020, which would mean that the events of 2020 were predetermined. They were meant to happen. However, a lot of people in psychosis have had the delusion that they're Mary Magdalene. So, I mean, just because I think I'm her doesn't mean I am, right? The thing is, though, I'm pretty sure that my twin flames' options at this point are to help me transform the world for the better or, just die from my sins again. And I want to give him all the details of what I've been up to with witchcraft over the past 5 years, partially in the name of saving my country, Jamaica, so that he can make an informed decision on whether he wants to continue rejecting my efforts to save him. Jamaicans manifested that justice and truth be theirs forever, so it's finally time for me to tell you the truth. Occam's razor is a problem solving principle that favors the simplest explanation for something. Based on the series of events that led up to my first psychotic episode, the simplest explanation for it would be that demons influenced it. Long story short, someone used sage on me, which forced me to start becoming conscious of Lilith, the mother of demons. Then I started experimenting with sage and other things I learned from that person on my own to try to heal from depression. But that's how Alkaline got in the middle of all of this. He's a Jamaican dancehall artist who used to utter some chants and nobody knew why or what he was saying. But one of the chants definitely included Diabolos, which is Greek for devil. So basically, our witchcraft started overlapping at that point, and I was plunged into psychosis. Here's the thing though, psychosis was actually a dream come true for me. I had always dreamed of being crowned as the ultimate demon girl because I felt like my skills at playing men were too good to not gain recognition. And I knew that psychosis was my opportunity to claim my crown. To do that, I needed to find a plausible way to connect Alkaline's demonic chants in the 2010s to my first psychotic episode, which was triggered by the first full moon in October 2020. So I came up with a story I wanted to tell about my psychosis, which was that Alkaline summoned the devil, but it wasn't time for her to answer until the October of the year the world turned upside down. October was important to this story and the perfect month for me to lose my mind because that's the month that Christians associate with the devil the most because of Halloween. Every scientist knows that correlation is not causation, though, so I couldn't go around telling that story hoping people would believe that there was a causal relationship between the chance and my psychosis. I had to find a scientific way to support my claim, which is where the twin flame hypothesis came in. New agents claim that a twin flame can trigger a person's awakening in a way that presents as psychosis. So that was my means of potentially making a connection between the chance and me going crazy. The problem was that I knew for a fact that this man, Alkaline, could never be my twin flame. Because them say that you choose the person before you're born, including how they will look. So you will find them physically attractive and it's love at first sight when you see them. None of that was true about how I perceived Alkaline, so I realistically knew that he was not my twin flame. The problem was, though, that I really did love his voice, and it felt like I was being hypnotized by it. So, in all honesty, it really did feel like he was summoning me. I'm not gonna lie. Even though I knew that Alkaline could not be my twin flame, treating the twin flame concept as a hypothesis was the only way for me to potentially gather scientific evidence that I'm the devil. The null hypothesis I developed to test the twin flame hypothesis was that I planned this incarnation with Alkaline, hence why he was key to me realizing my dreams at the perfect time. But the null hypothesis is the one that you're actually trying to gather evidence against, while the alternative hypothesis is the one you believe to be true. So, my alternative hypothesis was that before birth, I planned my incarnation based on Alkaline's karma. And that's why everything was going according to plan because karma is certain. So I was making videos on this channel saying, oh, he's such a genius. He's talking to me through music because he has an elaborate, well calculated plan. Because I knew that the more I made him seem like a genius was the more likely I'd be able to claim that genius as my own later on, due to the simple fact that I knew if twin flames really existed, he wasn't mine. Because if I could have choose somebody, it wouldn't be him. I thought I had a perfect plan on how to backtrack on my claims that Alkaline is a genius, claim my crown as the devil, and start making deals with people to help me create a better Jamaica. And, to start threatening politicians with hell for them to stop being so fucking corrupt. And, of course, to torment Christians, especially Jehovah's Witnesses. But things did not go exactly as I had planned. When I was ready to wrap up my magic trick, the ancestors told me that only love could save me and I needed to confess my love to be saved. And at first I was like, well, I'm fucked then because there's no way I'm confessing my love for Alkaline. I despise that man. But then, upon reflecting, I realized they were actually talking about Marco, a scientist I met in my final year at UA, who I always believed was just a fuckboy trying to play with my emotions. And as a certified player, I did not have any choice but to play back. But the ancestors said, girl, you literally just spent over 2 years of your life trying to prove that you're the devil, even though you think he doesn't like you and you think he's a problem. Based on your actions over these years, do you genuinely feel like between the both of you, he's really the issue here? And I was like, yes, of course. I do still think he's a problem because I only start playing games when I feel like someone else is playing games. And on top of that, When I reached out to him after not speaking to him for over 2 years, this man stopped replying in the middle of the conversation after telling me things I wanted to hear. So, of course, he's a fucking problem. Upon reflecting some more, I realized that what triggered my psychosis was that he broke my heart, and getting my heart broken was my greatest fear. I didn't realize my heart was broken because I didn't realize I was in love, and I didn't realize I was in love because I was certain I was not capable of romantic love. There's a lot to unpack there, but the most important thing is that he fit my twin flame hypothesis better. And he's the reason why I'm able to secure my crown as the devil. Thank you, Jesus. The heart is the seat of the soul, so when my heart finally got broken, it made me more susceptible to spiritual attacks. Hence why Alkaline's chants started having an effect in 2020 after I told Marco I missed him during the quarantine and he did not say it back. Now, that was the closest I've ever gotten to telling a man I love you non platonically and actually meaning it, but whatever. I actually found Marco attractive, and the first thought that I had when I saw him was, I want that man in my belly. So even though I didn't know love, it was at least lust at first sight. The realization that my heart was broken kind of threw me off, honestly, because I was so focused on proving that I'm the devil, I forgot that during my last psychotic episode at the beginning of 2022, the ancestors told me I was searching for the Christ soul, and if I didn't find it in Alkaline, I should look for it in Marco. I was so determined to torment people, I completely forgot about that at some point. That's where a lot of distress came from, though, because during that same episode, Legion informed me that if I sacrificed one of the men I hated the most, my spiritual crisis would be over. I'm not impulsive, so I had to think about it, and making the videos on this channel was actually a way of thinking through potential consequences of sacrificing Alkaline, which technically would just be his own karma. But eventually I realized that Legion wasn't talking about my psychosis ending, they were talking about the climate crisis, which technically is my personal crisis because I deeply care about the earth and I love animals more than anything else in this world. So I take their suffering personally. But realizing Marco is my twin flame gave me some more options other than sacrificing Alkaline to end the climate crisis. And these options were less spiritual and more psychological, and I knew they would potentially be more fun for me because it would mean that I'd get to torture an egotistical man with average intelligence who claims he's a genius. So I asked Legion to just hold off on taking Alkaline out because I had the perfect plan to make his life miserable by proving his enemies right. To be fair, I did give him the opportunity to prove his enemies wrong, and y'all saw that. And I tried to save this man from myself several times. His manager can attest to me emailing her for most of 2021, asking about potentially collaborating on ways to make Jamaica better, and they weren't interested. So my conscience is clear. I'm irritated that they probably thought I'm admitted I'm mad out over this clown when I was just trying to help him resolve his bad karma because I started seeing into the Akashic records and I realized that even though he was key to making my dreams come true, he has a spot waiting for him in hell, which I did not think was fair. Obviously, I no longer give a fuck about what's fair to him, but God is merciful, and that's why he sent his son Marcodine to save Alkaline and other people from me, the Obeah final boss. I did say that Judgment Day started in 2020. I just didn't say that God is the judge, I'm the jury, but I was also trying my best not to be the executioner as well. Jesus said at Mark 3:26, and if Satan opposes himself and is divided, he cannot stand, his end has come. So let's think about this. If I gave my life to God and he started making my wildest dreams come true, but I'm also the only person on this planet who can prove that there's Satan, but I'm against the evils that Christians claim are caused by Satan, does that not mean that Satan is divided and that his end has come? Like I said in Jamaica's national anthem, Jamaicans pray to God asking Him for justice and truth to be theirs forever. Jesus did say that He is the way, the truth, and the life. So, in my opinion, if God were to answer Jamaicans' prayer for the truth, it would make sense to send Jesus to be born in Jamaica this time around. Anyways, the ancestors told me that the way that I use witchcraft has the potential to negatively impact my twin flame, so I've been suppressing my anger as much as possible, causing myself harm because I don't want to hurt him even though I don't speak to him anymore. I really do care about him. So that's my testimony on how the power of Jesus Christ has been saving people from me, the devil. I don't know how much longer I can hold myself back to avoid harming a man who doesn't give a fuck about me though, and I'm very tired of fighting. So, this is me trying to save him from the potential consequences of my potential actions. If you remember what I told you about hypotheses, the null is the one you're trying to gather evidence against, and the alternative is the one that you believe is true. So I'm gathering evidence to support the alternative hypothesis that Marco is Yeshua and he helped to plan this final incarnation with me, but that's not necessarily true. So I'm hoping that we can discover the truth together. If he messages me or emails me at some point in the near future, then we can reject the null hypothesis and we'll know he definitely is Jesus. If he doesn't, then we'll fail to reject the null hypothesis, which at the end of the day doesn't really take away from the fact that there's strong evidence that I planned all of this before I got here, and I'm God's response to the national anthem of Jamaica. But please note, I will not be interfering with this experiment, especially since it has a lot to do with my research. So I won't be sending him this video or any videos I make in the future because I have no intention of contacting him first ever again. But I know that if it's God's will, he'll see the videos and respond. Regardless of whether or not he contacts me, though, this heavily suggests that reincarnation is real, meaning that Christianity cannot be the truth because it doesn't factor in reincarnation. What's even more fun, though, is that this implies that there's a before life, which would mean that there's also an afterlife. So it kind of ties in with my whole Queen of Hell thing, doesn't it? Marco is clearly my karma, and once I get past this, all of my karmic debts will be cleared. Now, during my spiritual crisis, I was 100% aware that I was experiencing karma for the mind games I used to play with men, but I couldn't understand why the universe would be tearing me apart on behalf of any of the men I used to play mind games with, because I never played mind games without a reason. They always gave me a reason to start. But karma caught up to me when I treated Marco like I treated other men, even though it felt like he was playing with my feelings. Because unlike other men, Marco is special to God and to me. I just ended up hurting myself by trying to hurt him because the truth was that I loved him. I just didn't want to admit it to myself. As I said, I was working on some cannabis research, and this has been my creative way of validating it outside of a lab and on my own time and terms. As a bonus, though, this experience has helped me as a biologist to figure out something in theoretical biology that has been confusing scientists, which is how the earth self regulates to maintain conditions favorable to life. And I'm hoping that my fellow biologist Marco is interested in being part of history with me. I set out to prove that people from the Faculty of Science and Technology at the University of the West Indies Mona campus are smarter than the people at the Faculty of the Medical Sciences because the people them on the fucking psych ward piss me off. So hopefully Marco and my other scientist friends can help me to achieve that objective. Here's the thing though, he's actually in great spiritual danger. The last time I saw him before we got put into the quarantine, I was wearing a shirt that said real princesses save themselves. He read the shirt, then said that's selfish, which made me realize he didn't understand that it didn't mean I wouldn't save anyone else. It meant that I didn't have the mentality that anyone was going to save me. I didn't explain that to him, I simply ignored his statement. So last year, when I sent an email to him basically asking him to help me raise consciousness so that I can get help to turn the climate crisis around and empower Black people, that was me trying to save him because I know that people are being judged based on their karma and on whether their actions are contributing to co creating a new sustainable way of being and not based on whether or not they believe in God. He didn't respond to that email, so when Lucifer started telling me that I either needed to sacrifice my twin flame or my ego for collective liberation to become a reality, I started going through extreme spiritual turmoil because I knew I wanted this man to live a long life filled with love and happiness, even if I never spoke to him again. But at the same time, him a move like him not a bumbleclot sense. It's almost like him a beg for be sacrificed at this point. And I don't like that because I'm pretty sure that the only reason he agreed to come back to this hellhole is so that he could live life to the fullest as a magician and a god. All he needs to do to help me to create heaven on earth is to message me so that we can end religious delusion as scientists. When he messages me, Lucifer will accept him as Lord and he will have power over Legion as well. Once upon a time, he told me I was cocky, but guess what, Marco? If I didn't have self confidence, I wouldn't have the power to turn you into a god. Over 5 years ago, I tell you something, nah run you down. And maybe now you can understand why I nah run down no bumbo clock, man. So make sure say you know what the fuck you are doing, Think about it. I'm too cocky to ever settle for a man that I have to fight this hard for. So Anna, they may I try there with you, but I do love you platonically and I always will. Hence why I want what's best for you. So please stop acting like you're as stupid as the average person and consider messaging me at a time that feels right to you. So, guys, that's my summary of how I gained 2020 vision and the story of how I know love is the strongest magic in the universe. The first and only person I've ever been in love with broke my heart and made me find my power. That's why all my services at Spectacular Thoughts cater to sensitive, caring beings who have been pathologized for their sensitivity because I know that we are the most powerful beings on this planet and that together we can transform the world for the better. If you go to the store on my website, you'll find the recording for the Tapping into the Magic of Rage workshop that I did last year. And in it, I basically decolonized the law of attraction to explain how marginalized people can alchemize their rage, pain, trauma, and so called mental illness into magic that can manifest their best possible reality and a liberated future for us all. And you always said world domination, blah, blah, blah. And you're the reason why I feel like I can conquer the world for real. Yeah, exactly. For those who are unfamiliar with Jamaican dancehall culture, Alkaline's brand is Vendetta, and he probably conceptualized that because of his hatred for Vibes Cartel, who you're probably more likely to know because he's the king of dancehall. However, unlike Alkaline, who is a disgrace to the true meaning of vendetta, my plots for revenge have actually been succeeding, and I do believe I've been building some momentum for the revolution. When I was strapped down to the ER bed back in October 2020, I was yelling Free the Bumbleclot Demon Head and singing Soul Reaper by Tommy Lee. And of course, they didn't believe that I'm the demon head, so they didn't take me out of the restraints. But I've just presented scientific evidence to support my psychotic claim that I'm the mother of demons. So, what are the odds that I was lying about being able to reap souls as well? There honestly was a point where I thought Alkaline was my twin flame because I saw myself in him. But the more I realized that his opponents were right and that this man only bad in a song and he's a coward in real life, it became obvious to me that we're not the same at all. Cause me, I'm bad in a real life. This one I make believe badness. So, if you're interested in helping the Obeah final boss manifest a better world into being, stay tuned. Thanks for watching.